Tonight, you're going to have a study on what was going on before the triumphal entry into Jerusalem, which is typically where our Easter studies, when we want to go deep, begin. We're going to back things up even further. And so I'm calling this Lazarus Come Forth, because that is the pivotal moment in what is going on in the drama that we're going to see here. So these are edited texts from the Gospel of John, and it's very important to understand that John's the last gospel written. So he is including this whole Lazarus story, which Luke does also, but Matthew and Mark do not. So Matthew's gospel written around 50 to 55, Mark around 70 to 80, Luke somewhere 70 to 90, 95, and John is the last one, 90 to 110. The reason Matthew and Mark don't mention this Lazarus thing is they were trying to hunt him down to kill him, because this miracle was too powerful and dramatically increased the interest in Jesus Christ. And so the Sanhedrin said, you know what, we got to kill Lazarus. That's all there is to it. And so he had a target on him from the time he was raised from the dead. So this is all very fascinating. It's very deep state stuff. It could be a movie, and let's get into it. It says, now early in the morning, he came again into the temple, and all the people came to him. Now just think about that. He comes to the temple early. He knows that the deep state in the temple are trying to find any way that they can arrest him. And where does he go? He goes to this place that was called the Women's Hall, right in the center of everything. And the Pharisees renamed it the treasury because they filled it full of boxes for the donations to the temple. And it says he came into the temple and all the people came to him. Now, just imagine the tension of that, with them not going to be taught by the temple priests. And he sat down and taught them. Then the scribes and Pharisees brought to him a woman caught in adultery. Now, just even that scene, he's teaching in the temple. He's having a meaningful, thoughtful Rabboni moment with a whole bunch of people, and they come dragging in some poor woman that they want to victimize and completely shatter the atmosphere of the Son of God teaching people who earnestly want to know the truth about God. This is how awful these deep state temple people are. And it's how awful they are here. It reminds me of SWAT teams going to houses of people at 5 o'clock in the morning and putting gun sights on infants and mothers holding infants, and all of it because somebody was praying outside an abortion mill. It's that kind of awful emissaries of Satan stuff. So then the scribes and Pharisees brought to him a woman caught in adultery. And when they set her in the midst, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in adultery in the very act." This is what graphic pigs these people are. "Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. What do you say?" This they said, testing him, that they might have something of which to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and wrote on the ground with his finger, as though he did not hear. So they meant for this to shatter the whole scene and disrupt, and everybody to be excited that they caught this woman and they were all going to see her killed right in front of them. And instead, he doesn't even respond to them. He doesn't respond to the demons. He squats down and starts writing in the dirt. This is the Son of God. This is how he handles these demoniacs who only want power and money. So when they continued asking him, he raised himself up and said to them, "He who is without sin among you, let him throw a stone at her first." And again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. Then those who heard it, being convicted by their conscience, went out one by one, beginning with the oldest, even to the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. Jesus had raised himself up and saw no one but the woman. He said to her, "Woman, where are those accusers of yours? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said to her, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." The Pharisees therefore said to him, "You bear witness of yourself. Your witness is not true." Jesus answered and said to them, "Even if I bear witness of myself, my witness is true. For I know where I came from and where I am going. But you do not know where I come from and where I am going. You judge according to the flesh. I judge no one. And yet, if I do judge, my judgment is true. For I am not alone, but I am with the Father who sent me. It is also written in your law that the testimony of two men is true. I am one who bears witness of myself, and the Father who sent me bears witness of me. Meaning, there are two of us, so we're within your law. Then they said to him, "Where is your father?" Of course, they assume they know, and they think that Joseph the carpenter is his father. They think they know all about him. Jesus answered, "You know neither me nor my Father. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also." These words Jesus spoke in the treasury as he taught in the temple, and no one laid hands on him, for his hour had not yet come. So that's a significant point in all of this that his disciples don't understand at all. They're afraid constantly of the attack of the temple guards and that Jesus will be stoned and that they may be killed also. And Jesus is following God's itinerary for this whole span of time right up to his death. He knows that there is a specific time and place and manner in which he will die. So he's not concerned about any of these threats or attempts. Then the Jews answered and said to him, "Do we not say rightly that you are a Samaritan and a demon?" So here's what they're doing. They're insulting the Son of God to his face. Samaritan is a racial slur from that time. It means you're a Jew who sleeps with pagans. There's no one lower. So we're calling you a Samaritan and have a demon. In other words, we figured out that the only way you do any of these miracles is because you are demon possessed. Now, that should have gotten a rise out of Jesus, but it doesn't. Jesus answered, I do not have a demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. And I do not seek my own glory. There is one who seeks and judges. Most assuredly, I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never see death. Then the Jews said to him, now we know that you have a demon. Abraham is dead and the prophets. And you say, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham, who is dead, and the prophets are dead? Who do you make yourself out to be? Jesus answered, if I honor myself, my honor is nothing. It is my Father who honors me, of whom you say that he is your God. Yet you have not known him, but I know him. And if I say, I do not know him, I shall be a liar like you. But I do know him and keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. Then the Jews said to him, you are not yet 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham? Jesus said to them, most assuredly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. Then they took up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed by. That's not even a miracle that he disappears. There is such a throng around him that as he pushes towards them, they open, and as soon as he passes in, they close behind him. And there's absolutely no way to get him because people are giving place as he walks forward and closing up behind him. And he just happens to be Emmanuel, God with us, and all of these things happen for a reason, and God's controlling it all. Now they go away out of Judea just to not have the distraction of this constant murderous group after him, because the deep state in the temple is putting out a price on his head and all of these things. The same thing that we see when they wanted to murder Paul, and they're constantly having groups of armed men wait to take him out. So Jesus just takes the whole group out of the area because he wants this time to be spent edifying them, so that they listen to him teaching people and see him healing people, and this will eventually be their job. So it says, now a certain man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. I explained to you why it's explained that way. It was that Mary, who anointed the Lord with fragrant oil and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore the sisters sent to him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick. When Jesus heard that, he said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Now that is a significant sentence. What he's saying is, this is going to be very important, not just for my disciples to see this, not just for the manner and how many days until we do it, but the fact that there are hundreds of people on this property between the house where the mourners are and the tomb. And they're only 2 miles from Jerusalem. So there are two groups of mourners there. There are the people who really care about Mary and Martha. And then there are the people who were sent by the deep state temple folks to spy and to make sure they report anything that goes on. So Jesus said, this sickness is not unto death, meaning he's not going to be dead, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it. So now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was sick, he stayed 2 more days in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to the disciples, let's go to Judea again. Now, there's a lot going on in 4 and 5. This is a super significant moment in what happens in Easter. And Jesus is saying, there's a specific place and time for my death, and there is a specific time for the resurrection of Lazarus. And in this case, it is 4 days. When the messenger took off to bring this message to Jesus, Lazarus was still alive. By the time he found Jesus, Lazarus had died, and Jesus knew it, but the messenger did not. So now Jesus says, we're going to wait 2 days, and then we're basically a day's travel. So we're going to get there on the 4th day. Why would he do that so rigidly? It is because the rabbis in the temple taught that when you died, your soul hung around your body for 3 days, hoping that something might happen that would cause a reunion of soul and body, and then it would have a home, the same old home as before, and go on from there. But if it went from the 3rd to the 4th day, then an obvious decay started to happen to the body, and the soul would realize that there's no way to make that a home anymore, and it would move on. So Jesus knows the importance of this miracle, and he does not want them to have any argument that it wasn't that at all. It is exactly what the rabbis taught. He did it on the 2nd or the 3rd day, and the soul was nearby, jumped in, and that's what made Lazarus live again. It's this crazy. It's just as crazy now as we see people trying to do good, and they have to dance around and go the long way around the barn to be able to do good because of all of these demoniacs trying to find any reason to stop it or to accuse it of evil or whatever. It's all the same thing. So Jesus says he stayed 2 more days in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to the disciples, let's go to Judea again. And the disciples said to him, Rabbi, lately the Jews sought to stone you, and are you going there again? And Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. So what does he mean by that? There's lots of different interpretations, but I think the one that applies to the circumstance they're in and what he's trying to say to them is, you're worried about going back there with the Son of God, and you're worried that I might be killed and that you might be killed. And what I'm telling you is there are 12 hours in the day, and anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. What he's saying is that day is your lifetime. It's like that rope talk with that inch, okay? That inch of red. That's what you get. And he's saying, so there's a specific beginning and ending to your life. And it's the same thing with my life. And God has a specific time and place and manner of my death. And it is coming up relatively quickly, but nobody can rush it. So I'm not worried about any of the temple hitmen. Then Jesus said, but if one walks in the night, he stumbles because the light is not in him. These things he said, and after that he said to them, our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may wake him up. So what is he saying to us in that sentence? He's saying that there's no getting around physical death, but it's temporary. It is like sleep. There's an end point to it, and I wake you up from it, and I'm going to wake Lazarus up from it. And his disciples said, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get well. However, Jesus spoke of his death, but they thought he was speaking about taking rest in sleep. These disciples are a little obtuse. They never really get with the way in which Jesus is talking to them. Then Jesus said to them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, that you may believe. Nevertheless, let us go to him. So that's a mouthful to them. They've heard the messenger come and say, Lazarus is sick. Please hurry and come and save him. And Jesus says, Lazarus is sleeping. It's okay. I will wake him up. And they go, well, if he's sleeping, we don't have to go there. So why should we risk our lives? He'll wake up from the sleep and he'll get better. And he's going, oy, Lazarus is dead. That's a shocker for them. How come the messenger didn't know that? Because he's Jesus Christ. He knows it. And then he said, listen, if you heard this sentence from these people who are scared to death to go to Bethany, Lazarus is dead. They all just heard the messenger say, Lazarus is sick. Please come. And they don't want to go. And then he says, Lazarus is dead. For all we know, the messenger is still there. I mean, this is tough stuff for all these people. And Jesus says, not only is he dead, but I'm glad for your sakes that I was not there. What if the messenger takes that back? I don't even know. I'm glad for your sakes that I was not there, that you may believe. And then he goes, nevertheless, let us go to him. You can see it's too much. They just don't get it. They can't follow along. And honestly, who could? Who could? It's all coming too fast and furious. And then, just for a surprise to us, Thomas, who is called Didymus, the twin, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. Now remember, this is the guy that we have named a colloquialism in our culture called Don't Be a Doubting Thomas, because he said, I'm not going to believe Jesus rose from the dead unless I get to stick my fingers in his womb. So this is the same guy, and he's saying, let us also go that we may die with him. So as in all times, including our times, there is no loss of physical courage among the populace. There's all kinds of people who say, I'll fight to the death. What we don't have is moral courage, and what we really don't have is people who can reason things out. who can take the information given and assess it and apply it. And Thomas is not one of those guys, because though he is expressing physical bravery, though he is expressing a heart for Jesus Christ, he's going to see Lazarus raised from the dead. And then he's going to say, I don't believe Jesus resurrected from what I saw. And I won't believe it until I can stick my fingers in those nail holes. That's not the guy you want holding the nuclear codes. All right, so when Jesus came, he found that he had already been in the tomb for days. He found it was all by design. Now, Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles. So there's a lot of going back and forth. And these people all knew that Lazarus and Mary and Martha were good friends with Jesus Christ. So this, in CIA terms, is a probable meet location, right? Meeting location. And so they got all their spies dressed as mourners all over the place, devoutly mourning Lazarus. And there are a whole bunch of people who love this family, and they're there also. And so there's a lot of people coming and going, and there's a lot of spies in this group. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him. But Mary was sitting in the house. So Mary's in the house with all the mourners, and there's lots of spies in that group because they figure that's where the action's going to happen. And Martha knows they're in there, and she wants to be able to talk with Jesus without nasty people listening. And so she gets up and goes and meets him on the way there. So then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him. But Mary was sitting in the house. Now Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. And Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. And Martha said to him, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. And Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is to come into the world. So she's having this dialogue with Jesus. She wants him to say, well, of course I'm going to raise him right now. He'll be back with you for dinner. And instead, she thinks he's talking theologically about the life after death. And he says, hey, I'm the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? And so now she's bound up because she believes it, but she wants something specific for Lazarus right now because she loves him. And she thinks this is his last chance to be back with them again. And so she just falls back on, she can't answer the question. What she can say is what her core belief is. And so she says, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is to come into the world, meaning the Messiah who is come to save us. She states every single major belief point for a Christian. And she does not contest with him anymore about what the immediate future is of her deceased brother. Let's continue. Then Jesus, again groaning in himself, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. And Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Now, Jesus, again groaning in himself. We don't know what that means. And so that's like a reason for 10,000 PhDs in theology to do a super study on that and deliver their dissertation and the whole thing. So I'll just shortcut that to my own dissertation. I believe that Jesus loved Lazarus. I believe that Jesus knows that Lazarus is out of his body and in glory, and that because Lazarus was a special guy, God decided to give him a special mission. And so Jesus is now going to call him from glory back into his body. So this is unusual. And not only is he coming back into his old, weak body, but people are going to try to kill him from this miracle forward for the rest of his life. And so he's not included in any of the other gospels until after 70 AD. Why? Because the temple's destroyed, because the chief priest is murdered, because all of these people that want Lazarus dead, that want Paul dead, that killed James, and that arranged for the murder of Jesus Christ, they're all gone, but they're all around during the time of Matthew and Mark. So this story is not in either one of those gospels. So I'll start again. Then Jesus, again groaning in himself, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. And Jesus said, "Take away the stone." And Martha, she's having a crisis of faith here, the sister of him who was dead, said to him, "Lord, by this time there is a stench, for he has been dead 4 days." So they all know the 3 and 4 day rule with the rabbis. And she doesn't believe that on the 4th day this can happen. And she doesn't want Jesus, whom she loves dearly, to be embarrassed by trying to do a miracle on a dead body on the 4th day and it not happening. And all of these terrible people that are around them are going to run to Jerusalem and say, "Here we go, false prophet." Jesus said to her, "Did I not say to you that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God?" Because she's not believing in this moment. It's all too awful and challenging, and you can empathize with her. She's just saying, "Hey, wait a minute. Don't try to do this. This is going to wreck everything." And he says, "Didn't I say to you that you would believe, that you would see, that if you believe, you'd see the glory of God?" Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead man was lying. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. And I know that you always hear me. But because of the people who are standing by, I said this, that they may believe that you sent me." Now, when he had said these things, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." There's a parallel to the trumpet sounding at the final resurrection. And he who had died came out bound, hand and foot, with grave clothes, and his face was wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, loose him and let him go. Then many of the Jews who had come to Mary and had seen the things Jesus did believed in him. So this was a huge miracle, and people immediately were coming to faith. But some of them went away to the Pharisees and told them the things Jesus did. So this is still going on in our day, and it's still going on in Trump's second term, that Laura Loomer found out all of these people who were leaking on Trump that he thought were good, and he fired them all as soon as she presented the proof. So even here where this wonderful thing happens, Satan is present trying to deny it. So then the chief priests and the council, the Pharisees, gathered a council and said, "What shall we do? For this man works many signs. If we let him alone like this, everyone will believe in him. And the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation." Now, that's not really an honest appraisal of what they were afraid of. What they were afraid of is they would lose their power and their money that came from exploiting that power. It's the exact same things when the rhinos and the Democrats in the Senate go, "We can't let this happen. What will happen to democracy if we don't go to Ukraine?" And one of them, Caiaphas, being high priest that year, said to them, "Nothing at all. Nor do you consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and not that the whole nation should perish." So he's come up with the strategy. We're going to kill this one guy, and then our power and our financial base will not perish. Couldn't care less about the people. It's like the Dems always talking about the children. They're the group that harms the children. So now he did not say on his own authority, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation, and not for that nation only, but also that he would gather together in one the children of God who were scattered abroad. Then from that day on, they plotted to put him to death. So this is not unlike what we saw with Trump just gaining all this popularity. And if any of you remember that scene at Madison Square Garden, to go into the dark blue dungeon of New York City and have people outside wearing MAGA hats and the place packed to the rafters inside. And the deep state said, "Okay, this is so out of hand. We got to take him out." And they tried 2 times, and God would not allow that to happen. So I'm going ahead, kind of a word of prayer. And this is certainly not the most Eastery photograph, but we're in Easter week. And the theme of what we're studying is how people in power will kill people trying to do good. And we've used JFK for prayers. He was killed by the CIA and other deep state involvement. And what I'm going to read to you is the address that this man lying on the floor, Robert F. Kennedy, spoke to a crowd of Black people in Indianapolis when he announced to them that Martin Luther King had been shot and killed. And just to refresh everybody's memory, he's lying on this floor 2 months after delivering this address on the day that he was like killing it in the primaries. I mean, he was definitely headed to be president. And the deep state was not going to allow that to happen. So here is Bobby Kennedy's address, which historians say probably prevented a huge riot in Indianapolis that would have kicked off riots everywhere. He says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm only going to talk to you for just a minute or so this evening because I have some very sad news for all of you. I have some very sad news for all of you, and I think sad news for all of our fellow citizens and people who love peace all over the world." This is April 1968. And that is that Martin Luther King was shot and killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee. This is the first this crowd is hearing it. Martin Luther King dedicated his life to love and to justice between fellow human beings. He died in the cause of that effort. In this difficult day, in this difficult time for the United States, it's perhaps well to ask what kind of nation we are and what direction we want to move in. For those of you who are Black, considering the evidence, evidently is that there were white people who were responsible. You can be filled with bitterness and with hatred and a desire for revenge. We can move in that direction as a country, in greater polarization, Black people amongst Blacks, whites amongst whites, filled with hatred toward one another. Or we can make an effort, as Martin Luther King did, to understand and to comprehend and replace that violence, that stain of bloodshed that has spread across our land with an effort to understand compassion and love. For those of you who are Black and are tempted to be filled with hatred and mistrust of the injustice of such an act against all white people, I would only say that I can also feel in my own heart the same kind of feeling. I had a member of my family killed, but he was killed by a white man. But we have to make an effort in the United States. We have to make an effort to understand, to get beyond or go beyond these rather difficult times. My favorite poet was Aeschylus, and he once wrote, "Even in our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God." What we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another, and a feeling of justice towards those who still suffer within our country, whether they be white or whether they be Black. So I ask you tonight to return home, to say a prayer for the family of Martin Luther King, but more importantly, to say a prayer for our own country, which all of us love, a prayer for understanding and that compassion of which I spoke. We can do well in this country. We will have difficult times. We've had difficult times in the past, and we will have difficult times in the future. It is not the end of violence. It is not the end of lawlessness, and it's not the end of disorder. But the vast majority of white people and the vast majority of Black people in this country want to live together, want to improve the quality of our life, and want justice for all human beings that abide in our land. And let's dedicate ourselves to what the Greeks wrote so many years ago, to tame the savageness of man and make gentle the life of this world. Let us dedicate ourselves to that and say a prayer for our country and for our people. And 60 days later, here he is. And there's a common culprit in all of this. And it's no different than over 2,000 years ago, that the people who were in power decided that an individual who was doing absolutely staggeringly amazing good needed to be killed so that they could preserve their power and money. And that's the same reason that JFK was killed by our deep state government. The same reason Martin Luther King was killed by our deep state government. The same way RFK was killed by our deep state government, and the same way that Donald Trump was almost killed twice by those same organizations. We as Christians need to know the truth, and the truth will set us free. And we need to understand what the disciples did not, that God has a beginning and an end to our lives. And there's nothing we can do to change that. So if we really believe that, and we really believe that death has no sting, then we have no reason to be silent about a government that is continuing this rot that was begun thousands of years before Jesus' time, but needs to end. And we may have a chance to end it in the next 3.5 years. And so I hope everybody will search their soul this Easter and think about the sacrificial death of Jesus Christ and the promise of life after death, and understand that we can walk in a different way with however many days God has for us. So, thank you. This is not an easy study. I think it's an important study, and the rest of them are not going to be like this, but the next one will be kind of like this because it's ugly stuff. And we have to be able to wrap our arms around the truth.